so what I do is use a lot of the experience and the skills I gained in the marketplace to try to benefit our work with opportunity around the world. And we can get more in depth into this, but I think I was talking to a student at lunch today who was asking my view of the business world, and I know that it's there's a dynamic of ambivalence about the business world. In fact, those of you that might be very interested in going into investment banking, maybe you need to go around and feel like you're interested. And I just want to say that if I hadn't had the experiences that I've had, if I hadn't gained the skills that I had gained, I wouldn't be able to do any of what I'm attempting to do or our team is trying to do. So, and I think that's true of all of us on this panel. And I would just encourage us to have a more open mindset to what the private sector provides, both directly in our work experiences and then how we can contribute that in other efforts. So that's just a brief summary of what I did. I went to Dartmouth 82, and I went to get an MBA, and go Big Green. And this weekend is an antidote to the last couple of weeks of press releases.
Yeah, no, I wanted to go last because as a good African, I think we're going to be together for a long time. But I will just very briefly share where I am today, maybe 30 seconds or 1 minute of where I am today, and go a little bit back to where I'm coming from. So I was with Opportunity International, sitting on various boards and committees of the organization, really wanting to make a difference in the lives of the poor. Coming from a very poor background myself, I want to touch the lives of others. So 2002, my wife of 42 years, Priscilla, my granddaughter, Denali. So my wife and I, since 2002, decided to join Opportunity International, basically because of the work that this organization was doing, and to know that we were going to be serving within a Christian organization, working with other Christians, and touching really multitude of lives. In our own personal lives, obviously you help this orphan or you help somebody here and there, but Opportunity was giving us that platform where we literally could touch thousands and thousands of lives. So since 2002, we started contributing and being advocates and ambassadors for the organization, ending with my retirement from banking in 2008, and Opportunity saying, now that you don't have anything to do, we really want to use you to the maximum. So I served on various boards for 6 years. After 6 years, you're supposed to rotate out to give younger people with better ideas, to take over and go on with the show. So I am not on the board of Opportunity. I continue to support as a governor. Financially, I continue to support in terms of fundraising and what have you. But a lot of my time today is taken by traveling to Africa. I serve on boards of banks in Africa. I serve on boards of banks in Kazakhstan. Long stories that we can talk about later. I am on the board of visitors of the Tucker Foundation here, and what attracted me to Tucker was just the concept of service, social justice that we were talking about this morning, and spirituality, the idea that different faiths and people of no faith could have civil conversations without necessarily getting at each other's throats. So I am doing that. I am serving on the missions committee of my church. And there are other people still knocking on the door, but God has given us just so much in terms of energy, in terms of what we can do with this body, so I will have to prioritize. So that's where I am today. But I look at me being here and wanting to convey to you the idea that it is by God's grace. Okay, so I can do nothing apart from God's grace, I cannot come here tell you about my achievements apart from God's grace. There are decisions, choices which were made in my life. I didn't choose, coming back to what David was saying, I didn't choose to be born a Benakajamba, okay, of the Benambai clan, of the Baluba tribe, of the Bantu race. I didn't choose that. That was a sovereign decision by God. So being here, coming to Dartmouth, all God's grace, long stories, but we can get into that with wishes.
Thank you very much. Now that we know a little bit about you, you can probably just say a little bit more about what you do, and then I'll hope to open up for questions shortly so that we can all be engaged in this conversation. But before we move on, I realize that there is a theme in how you guys engage the development issue. You mentioned, David, the idea that we need to rethink the way that we do this and start looking at the marketplace for ideas, and then there's something also you also talked about that we cannot just antagonize business and say that business is out there, development is here. But how do we find the common ground given the legacy of capitalism and how we know that there is a pursuit of self-interest and all that does not seem to align with service per se. How do you find the common ground between the marketplace and development? Maybe we can start with you.
Well, there can be a tension there, but doesn't have to be a tension there. I think first of all, it's the Christ in us, I think, that gives us the motivation to do what we do, and that's probably the best governor we have on kind of the capitalism, just kind of out of control. So I think that's a governor in and of itself. But I think also if you have a community-based model where the interest of the people in the communities, the families in the communities at large, if their interests are incorporated into it, whether that's infrastructure for the community, roads, water, schools, healthcare, things like that, or whether it's businesses that serve populations, give them jobs. I think the key to it is to have a collaboration where the business people are working in concert with community-based people. They tend to think differently. And it creates what we've seen down in Nicaragua, a very healthy tension where business unchecked by community sensitivities can lead to exploitation in a sense, or where you're trying to minimize the cost of labor in order to maximize profit. The community people, on the other hand, are very good at being sensitive to the needs of the peoples and the communities, but they don't have a big focus on sustainability and job creation. So I think the real kind of secret sauce, in my opinion, is when you have kind of these two different mindsets coming together and making sure that it's a both and, not an either or.
So lots of answers to that. One is, without capitalism, we wouldn't have capital to do many of the things that we want to do, including transfer money in a variety of ways to help less developed countries. The second is, without capital, we wouldn't have the water sanitation systems that we all depend on, the roads, etc. I think that when we think about the downsides of capitalism, it's kind of like thinking about the side effects of the life-saving drug. And you have to acknowledge the side effects and minimize them, but we'd be crazy to, in my opinion, to go away from an economic system. And if we think about David's beginning, talking about poverty alleviation in the last, in our lifetimes, it's true that a lot of our aid efforts haven't worked, but what has worked? There have been more people who come out of poverty in China than in the history of the world in terms of the time period. Why has that happened? China has pursued an industrialization and an urbanization policy. There's problems with it. I mean, there's huge environmental problems, but it's essentially adopting a capitalist approach. And so I don't see any way, you can't disentangle them. They're completely aligned. So David's effort, his team's effort in Nicaragua, part of it is to help farmers whose yucca plants stay stable as long as they're in the ground. But once they're harvested, they've got 24 hours to get to market. But if you've got just a cart and a donkey, and the roads get muddy and you can't get to market, your kids' food goes away. So if there's a truck, which his community economic development project supplies to make sure that they get to market, then they have food and then they go to school. And why are we getting them to market? To sell them to large producers that need that